Welcome in, everybody, to the Flagship Podcast. I am Chip Brown of Horns247.com, joined by the managing editor of Horns247, Taylor Estes, and we are recapping the Texas Longhorns regular season finale, a 38-27 win over Baylor on Black Friday. And Taylor, for a little over 3 quarters, it looked like it might be a nightmare Black Friday for the Longhorns, but after a strip sack scoop and score by Baylor that allowed the Bears to take the lead with 13 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game, Steve Sarkisian said, okay, I will just give the ball to Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson, and Texas ended the game with 25 straight running plays, all a part of, well, not all, but 2 straight touchdown drives with a Jalen Ford interception sandwiched in between, and Texas takes control of the game thanks to Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson, the two wonder
two-headed
duo,
monsters. Yeah.
two-headed monster, they're Marvel characters. I don't know who you pick one, pick 2, I guess. But this was a crazy game because for the first half, Baylor dominated the time of possession. They were the ones establishing the running game, but they weren't, they're going on long drives, but they weren't coming away with touchdowns. So they only led 19-17 at the half. And then the Texas defense, which was little generous in the first half, had some busted coverages, gave up some long plays, including a 47-yard touchdown pass, completely shuts down the Baylor offense in the second half, held the Bears to 56 total yards. We mentioned the Jalen Ford interception, his 4th interception of the season, always at a big time, it seems. DeMarvion Overshone finishes with 14 tackles for that incredible defensive effort. Jalen Ford with 13. Both of them had 2 tackles for loss. Both of them had a sack. I mean, the defense was amazing until Steve Sarkisian could finally get it through his head that, you know what, I just need to hand the ball to Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson.
Yeah. I mean, what a concept, right? You have arguably one of the best 1-2 punches in college football in Bijan Robinson, Roschon Johnson. They're probably likely final home game playing for Texas, playing in DKR. Roschon Johnson's been a little bit more open about, he's probably not going to use his COVID year of eligibility to return. He's probably, or he's not banking on it, I believe is what he said on Monday when he was asked about it. Bijan has been a little mum in talking about it, understandably so. There's still games left, or at least one game, a bowl game at least, and potentially, depending on how the Kansas-K-State game turns out tomorrow on Saturday, potentially 2 games left on the schedule for him. But yeah, I mean, this was, Steve Sarkisian has said weeks before this that when the game is on the line, he wants to put the ball in the hands of the people that he trusts the most. And he has, singled out Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson in those scenarios. He did it today. It obviously, paid off. Bijan Robinson, I believe, finished with 179 yards, 6.2 yards per carry. He did surpass Jamal Charles on the all-time career rushing list in Texas football history. He is now number 4 behind Ricky Williams, Earl Campbell, and Cedric Benson. And, he came up with those 2 crucial touchdowns. Obviously, Roschon Johnson had a touchdown. And I feel like this was a perfect way to end the season the way the game played out. Obviously, it wasn't great in the first half, and it kind of made you a little uneasy, wondering, is Sark going to actually hand the ball off to these guys more and just let them try to do work, on this Baylor defense that's been pretty decent against the run, but have, been known to give up some big chunk yardage, against teams this season. obviously kind of a up and down year for Baylor, but this was a huge win, Chip, and I think the defense needs to get a ton of a credit because this is the third straight game that the Texas defense itself has held their opponents to fewer than 20 points. I know, Baylor scored 27, but 2 of those points came on a safety. The first, possession on offense by Texas where Quinn Ewers had the intentional grounding penalty against him, which led to the safety, and then the fumble that Baylor did return for a touchdown. So 18 points given up by the Texas defense. Considering what the defense was last season, you'll take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday or Black Friday, we'll say today. But, just a great way for, I think, the defense, especially to end the regular season, especially with so many of the upperclassmen on that side of the ball playing in their last game at DKR.
Yeah. Texas finishes the game with 7 tackles for loss and 3 sacks. DeMarvion Overshone, Jade Barron, Alfred Collins with the sacks, and they just played suffocating defense despite Baylor owning the time of possession in the first half, 21 minutes and 1 second to 8 minutes and 59 seconds. The Texas defense was on the field for 21 minutes of the 30 in the first half. And you're wondering, oh Lord, is this a recipe for disaster? Is this Texas defense going to finally give out? Because the Texas offense was like a fish flopping around on a boat deck. 1 second it looked great. The next, Quinn Ewers was getting sacked. I mean, Ewers was sacked 5 times, and the offense had all 5 penalties in this game, 4 false starts.
3 in a row, technically.
3 in a row. And
yeah, Jatavian Sanders, 4th down 1, and then back-to-back Hayden Conner,
Yeah, and at the worst time. I mean, you just mentioned it. They're going for it on 4th and 1. Jatavian Sanders, false start. They end up punting. And then the intentional grounding on Quinn Ewers to open the game from the end zone, which resulted in the safety. And you're just wondering what on earth is going on here. And so, even a pass to Jordan Whittington after 2 of those false starts, and Texas was at 1st and 20, they complete a 29-yard pass to Jordan Whittington, who looks amazing on the play, and then he gets rocked and fumbles, and Baylor recovers. And you're going, man, it is just not the Texas offense's day. When are they going to just hand it to Bijan Robinson, who, in the first half, Bijan he had 12 carries for through the first 3 quarters, Taylor. Through the first 3 quarters, he had 12 carries for 64 yards. Through the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, he had 17 carries for 115 yards and the touchdown. And you're just, you're wondering what took so long, because this was another game that was eerily similar to the Oklahoma State game, where Texas, has the lead. Looks like they have the game, starting to get under their control, and then they keep putting the game on the arm of Quinn Ewers when clearly it's not a good day. He's, as I mentioned, been sacked 4 times by the time he finally gets Baylor gets the strip sack and scoop and score touchdown to take the lead with 13:30 left. And that's in the fourth quarter. Baylor led with 13:30 left in the game. And that's when Steve Sarkisian decides to run it 25 straight times to end the game. And he said he blamed himself for calling that was a first down pass, Taylor, that Quinn Ewers got sacked for a 17-yard loss. The ball comes out and Baylor scoops it and scores it when Bijan Robinson had just run for 9 yards. it just put me right back in that Oklahoma State game where Texas had the 2 fourth quarter drives that started off averaging 6 yards a carry and 11 yards per carry, only to throw the ball incomplete on second and third down. One drive ended in a punt, the other in a missed 46-yard field goal. And fans are going to play the what if game. I'm playing the what if game right now. What if they'd have just trusted Bijan Robinson to do what he did today against a kind of similar run defense? And who knows? Maybe Texas is already in the Big 12 title game. Maybe Bijan Robinson is higher in the consideration for the Heisman Trophy or the Doak Walker Award. Was today enough? 179 yards rushing and a dominant fourth quarter on a day where there's not a lot of college football going on. Was that enough in front of Heisman voters to say, okay, here's a guy who's surging. Here's a guy who's done it. He just ran for 243 the last week in a 55-14 win over Kansas. Is that enough to get him on enough Heisman ballots to at least get invited to New York? I as a Heisman voter, I'm looking long and hard at the guy and saying, you know what? He's pretty darn special. And what he does is take over games.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. I know, as you know, with Chip being a Heisman voter, you're not supposed to really talk about how you are planning to vote until, the finalists and everything do come out. But Chip, for you as a Heisman voter, you obviously have covered Bijan Robinson for the last 3 years, mainly, let's just be honest, 2 years, because I feel like most people would wonder if he was underutilized his true freshman year in 2020. It was a shortened season, obviously, as well, with the COVID, only playing 10 games that year. But as a Heisman voter, I feel like the award a lot of times has turned into the best player on the best team or the best quarterback on the best team in recent years. There have been a few years I feel like the voters did get it right, when RG3 won. Obviously, Baylor was not one of the top teams in college football. When Johnny Manziel won, sorry, Texas fans, but that was the right call. Like, he was the best player in college football. It seems like when those scenarios do come to fruition, it's always the quarterback. But you as a voter, Chip, I'm curious, and watching what Bijan has done this season and how he's been able to really change the outcome of games and really put games on his shoulders as a quote unquote underutilized running back. What's your take? Does he deserve, in your opinion, if you're talking to other Heisman voters, are you, kind of petitioning for him to get at least an invite to New York? Or do you think that there's better running backs in college football that are just as special and just as important to the team as
Well,
Bijan?
I think the voters in the state of Texas, in the Southwest, probably know how good Bijan Robinson is, but the voters in California and in the Southeast and in the Northeast and in the Midwest probably would need to see Bijan Robinson in a Big 12 championship game. I mean, his Heisman hopes might rest with the Kansas Jayhawks on Saturday night, because if the Heisman voters are doing their due diligence, they're not going to vote until the conference championship games are completed. You have until the Monday after the conference championship games to submit your vote, especially in a year like this where there's not a runaway favorite for the Heisman. I think everyone needs to wait until the conference championship games are completed, and it might come down to that.
It should, right?
It should. It always
Yeah.
should. It
Yes.
always should. And I hope that Heisman voters were, made a note to watch the Texas game, knowing that Bijan Robinson, a guy who we're now talking about, as you mentioned, a guy who passed Jamal Charles, trails only Ricky Williams, Cedric Benson, and Earl Campbell on the all-time rushing list at Texas. That is so significant because Jamal Charles and Bijan Robinson are the only 3-year players on that list. The 3 players above them played 4 years. That's Ricky Williams, obviously, 6,279 yards rushing in his 4 years. It'll be interesting because, I'm sitting here watching this North Carolina game. Mac Brown's got a quarterback named Drake May who's been fantastic this year, and he's in overtime against NC State, and these are the players who are who are under consideration, and I hope the Heisman voters paid attention today because Bijan Robinson was phenomenal in the fourth quarter and single-handedly lifted his team from a deficit to take command of that game and win this thing by 11 points. And so I think Bijan Robinson made a strong case for himself today. I just don't know if it's enough, and does he need that conference championship game where he's got all the eyeballs in a big time showcase game to get them to put his name as one of the three names on their ballot. I don't know at this point, but I think Bijan Robinson made a strong case for those Heisman voters who were watching today.
Yeah, and you would hope so too. And I will say this, obviously Bijan Robinson, I would say headlines this win for Texas, Chip, but what should not go unnoticed is Roshan Johnson as well. I mean, another game where he really played a solid backup, RB2 type of role. 13
Yeah, for a
carries.
guy who was a game time decision.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With a couple of injuries coming out of the Kansas game last week.
Yeah, and he got, came and handled business, 77 yards rushing, 5.9 yards per carry, also had 2 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns as well. I mean, this is I will say this,
And his final touchdown, Taylor, he hurdled a Baylor defender at the 3
yeah,
on an 11-yard touchdown run that will be on SportsCenter tonight.
It should. Yeah, it should be leading the Sports Center, top 10 plays. And it's funny, Chip, because when we're in the press box at games, oftentimes we'll go down to the field with 5 minutes left on the game clock. That's usually when they allow people in the press box to go onto the sidelines there. And so I got down onto the sideline, and I was in if you're where Texas was driving on the right side, where he was hurdling. And that was one of the first plays I saw on the field. And I was like, dang, I came at the right time, because I literally saw him hurdle right above me, essentially. And I was just like, my gosh, that kid was like, if he would have probably talked to agents or talked to people close to him that are looking out for his future, would have been like, sit, like, don't, chance it. Let's just be cautious. You have a whole future ahead of you. He's kind of talked his way into potentially a day 2 NFL draft pick as a backup running back. And when I saw that, I was just like, that is a perfect ending, I feel like, to Roshan Johnson's career at Texas, for what he has done at Texas. Starting off being a quarterback recruit, being asked if he would move to running back as a freshman because Texas needed depth at running back. And he didn't think, I don't think at that time, that he was going to stay a running back. He wanted to, I've talked to sources close to Roshan Johnson. At that time, he wanted to move back to playing quarterback. And the more he played running back, the more he kind of, I think, felt like, okay, maybe I am a running back. It took a couple of years for him to get to that point. But just like the fact that was kind of the seal the deal moment for him at DKR in front of that home crowd, I feel like he deserves so much credit, and probably has not gotten anywhere near the credit that he is due, not just overall, but I think Texas fans have given him a ton of credit. I think if Texas fans are diehards and they watch every single game, they know Roshan Johnson is never the one that's going to, half it or anything like that. He's going to give his all regardless. But that, I just feel like, I was just like, what a cool moment for him. I'm so glad that he got a touchdown in general. And the fact that, 2 of the touchdowns and 1 came on a hurdle play, I just felt like, there you go, Roschon, like you go off into the sunset onto the NFL because you've done everything you can for Texas. And I want to give credit where credit is due there. And, obviously Bijan's going to steal the show, but Roschon, my goodness, talk about that secondary backup performance that he had once again. And I feel like we talk about that almost every single week with him.
Yeah, no, and he's been so, outstanding for this football team as a leader. And Steve Sarkisian has talked about it. All of his teammates have talked about it. So um, you just you're just so happy for Roshan Johnson to decide to play in the game despite his injuries and have a game like that, have a finish like that. That was his 11-yard touchdown run where he hurdles the Baylor defender, came right after the Jalen Ford interception. It was Texas's final points of the game. It gave them the 11-point lead, and Texas, the defense stuffed Baylor once again after that, and Texas was in position to score again when they basically took a knee and ended the game. So just a unbelievable fourth quarter, and for Texas fans, it was the ultimate final 15, well, let's say final 13 minutes and 30 seconds. After that, Baylor scoop and score, and you're sitting there going, oh no, is Texas going to invent a way to lose this game? They resoundingly dominate that fourth quarter. And again, held Baylor to only 56 yards of total offense in the second half. I mean, this Texas defense, from where they were a year ago, giving up over 200 yards per game rushing, giving up 5.2 yards per carry, second worst in school history, to now, be holding opponents under 20 points on the regular, and to completely shut down TCU, the number one scoring offense in the conference, Kansas, the number two scoring offense in the conference in back-to-back weeks, and then, get dominated in the first half in terms of time of possession and come back and play the way that the Texas defense did in the second half against Baylor, which is a stout running team, and again, dominated the time of possession in the first half, because Dave Aranda, even though Baylor was only averaging 2.1 yards per carry, they stuck with it, and it helped them. I mean, it helped them, control the clock. It helped them. I mean, Taylor, two of their big pass plays in the first half were on 4th and 2 and 4th and 6. They completed a 15-yard pass on 4th and 2 and a 16-yard pass on 4th and 6. And you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, this is the Texas Tech game all over again, where they're, getting everything to where they want it, but the other team's going for it on 4th down and converting, and you're starting to think, oh no. But for them to play for the Texas defense to play the way it did in the second half was so impressive. And Pete Kwiatkowski deserves a ton of credit. Bo Davis, the defensive line coach, Jeff Choate, the linebackers coach, for getting Jalen Ford. How about Jalen Ford? This guy has finished the year. He very well could be, and I think he should be, the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. You have a year like that. Are you thinking about coming out early? We talked about this a little bit on our Flagship podcast during the week.
Yeah.
He said, well, I still think I have some things to work on, but I'll sit down with my family. Okay, here's another game, where he's dominant. 2 tackles for loss, a pass breakup, a quarterback hurry, a huge interception. This guy's everywhere, and really impressive. What a way to finish the regular season.
Yeah, and I would say that Jalen Ford is definitely one of the guys that has a decision to make, because I agree with you, Chip. And, we did talk about this on the Flagship podcast on Wednesday, but with the Big 12, if he can secure the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year honor, which I think he probably should, and since it is voted, I believe it is that is voted on the coach or by the coaches in the league, correct? The head coaches.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me makes me think that he probably will, because every head coach out there knows that 41 has been a menace for their offense. I mean, it's just a reality. Whether how many games back to back to back to back, I think that he led the team in tackles. He has forced so many turnovers, not just interceptions. He has forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, interceptions, as you said, today was a huge one. And I feel like he should be, in my opinion, a shoo-in probably for the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. I do think that since coaches are the voters on that, they probably will put him into that category. But I would say he's one of the guys that prior to the season was not one that many people would be sitting here saying, come Black Friday, that, okay, somebody that has the biggest decision to make is probably Jalen Ford. I would be shocked if somebody would have told me that prior to the start of the year. I would have been like, you're out of your mind, because that linebacker position is a question going into the season, but he stepped up in such a big way. I mean, DeMarvion Overshown did too, but I think that Jalen Ford is probably the story of the year for the defense, even though there are a number of stories of the year for this defense, coming off of that season, as you were talking about, with being one of the worst among the worst defenses in school history in year one under Pete Kwiatkowski. That turnaround is something significant. And when we don't get to talk to Pete Kwiatkowski or our coordinators very often. We've only been able to speak with them, twice, I think, since they were hired. And when our first interview ever with Pete Kwiatkowski was before the 2021 season, he was asked what he ideally would think is a good performance from a scoring defense performance. Just since he, came from a different conference, was a longtime coach in the Pac-12 conference. And he had said probably like 21 points or less is what you would ideally want. And that's pretty much what the Texas defense has had. Obviously, I said, 3 straight games now with allowing or giving up less than 21 points. I mean, you've got to take that every single day. But I would say, Chip and I were walking to our cars after the end of the Texas Baylor game. And I had said, I was like, man, this defense, I feel like the stories of the year for Texas has been, this defense has just continued to be lights out, continued to not let off in games where last year the defense had really good first halves and started falling off in the second half of games, especially when the time of possession differential was very heavily in favor of the other team. I would say that's number one. And then the what if, what if this team won a few more games? What would that have mean for Bijan Robinson in the Heisman race? What would that have meant for, the team's, outlook? I think those are probably two of the biggest stories, but I think it starts honestly on the defensive side of the ball. I would say that. And that's kind of crazy to say, considering where Texas has been defensively, not just last year, but I feel like in recent history, they just have been kind of up and down there.
Yeah. And I mean, Jahdae Barron, this guy played himself into a situation where, he now leads the team in tackles for loss. He had 2 more today. So he finishes the regular season as the team's tackle for loss leader. This is a guy who was playing corner and nickel throughout the Baylor game. I was like, what is going on here? Deshaun Jameson and Terrence Brooks were playing the field corner, but there were times where they would take Deshaun Jameson or Terrence Brooks out, bring in Diamante Tucker Dorsey at linebacker, and move Jahdae Barron to corner. And this has been going on for the last 3 games. This kid's so versatile. He had 5 tackles today, 2 tackles for loss. He dropped another interception, would have been a sure pick 6 in the first half. He dropped a sure pick 6 last week. I'm sure he's kicking himself. He did have a pick 6 earlier in the year against UTSA. He's got 2 interceptions on the season, and he's had an unbelievable year. I think if you put Jalen Ford at 1, you probably put Jahdae Barron at 2, and then the defensive line at 1A or 2A with how well they were able to stop the run this year. So the Texas defense has been the biggest story of the year. We knew Bijan Robinson was a monster. We didn't know what to expect from Quinn Ewers, and it was tough. It was tough for Quinn Ewers. He had that unbelievable start against Alabama for a quarter, throws that 46-yard deep ball to Xavier Worthy, and I think everyone thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a picnic. And then he has that incredible game when he comes back against Oklahoma. Now, that was an Oklahoma team that was reeling. Then he ran into the three high safety defenses, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and he struggled mightily, no question about it, and needed Bijan Robinson to help him and Roshan Johnson to help him. Steve Sarkisian, I thought, failed Quinn Ewers in that Oklahoma State game. I don't even get as upset about the TCU game because TCU is a top 4 team, an undefeated team, having a great year, and they played the best defensive game of their season against Texas. It's almost like they had their signals. They knew exactly what was coming. But that Texas defense showed up when they had to have it, against K-State on the road, against Kansas on the road, today against Baylor. Finished the season unbelievably with their big-time playmakers making big-time plays. And that you just have to, feel really good about that. And special teams, kind of a quiet day today, but Bert Auburn came through when he had to, and, not a great day punting the football for Daniel Trejo, but he had a better day than the Baylor punter who let Texas back into this game with an 11-yard shank out of bounds. Texas got the ball at the Baylor 29 after that shanked punt, Taylor, and they needed 3 plays to score, and that allowed Texas to get back into the game. And so, when you look at all 3 phases, you'll say, okay, Texas, I'll take this. I'll take this performance.
A complete game, right? Sark always
Complete game.
says, you got to play a complete game on all 3 phases, and I think Texas did as well of that as they probably could have in this scenario. I mean, just the fact that we had said the time of possession differential at halftime, 21 minutes 1 second to 8 minutes and 59 seconds. And it was a 2-point game at that point. And 2 of those points came from the Texas offense, from Quinn Ewers, the safety in the end zone there. I mean, this was, you can't really ask for more. Now, Chip, it's gonna, as we kind of turn the page here, all eyes are on the Kansas State game. Actually, before we say that, I want to say something about Xavier Worthy. So I feel like we've been pretty critical on Xavier Worthy this season about his effort or lack thereof sometimes when it's not, perfectly in his hands. There was a play, I think it was in the 3rd quarter, where he caught the ball and he lowered his helmet and just absolutely trucked the coverage guys on him. And I was like, there you go, Worthy. Like, the thing that has always been tough for me is when you see somebody that has the talent and athleticism of the caliber of Xavier Worthy, you want to see them play max effort, right? And I feel like there have been a number of times this season where he was giving probably the least amount of effort offensively. And it was frustrating at times, but I felt like he came to play. Obviously not going to be, a big story coming out of this game. But when he lowered his shoulders and lowered his helmet and just absolutely trucked that Baylor defender, I was like, I think it was 3rd quarter. You could correct me if I'm wrong here, but I was like, that's one of those pump up moments, and you want to see some of the the best players on the field with the highest ceiling making those plays, and we haven't seen that much for Worthy. But I do want to give credit there because I feel like that's going to be overlooked. I was very impressed with his performance today. And now we look ahead, Chip. I mean, all eyes are on this Kansas and Kansas State game. Who would have thought, right? At the beginning of the season, do you think that if somebody would have told you, oh, hey, so the Big 12 conference race is going to come down to the Kansas and Kansas State game, and it could be either or at a toss up a little bit there because Kansas is so much better than they expected. I mean, what would you have told somebody at the beginning of the season if that's what they told you?
Oh, I would have said, okay, wait, what?
You're drunk. Have another, right?
Yeah. I mean, I expected K-State to be in the mix, and they've done what they're supposed to do. And again, Will Howard, this guy, if there's a comeback player of the year, Will Howard might be able to cement that with a strong performance against Kansas, and that's my concern in this one. Will Howard has been so good when he's played the majority of a game for K-State. He's been really hard to beat. I mean, he came in for an injured Adrian Martinez against TCU, led them to a 28-10 lead in Fort Worth. Then Will Howard gets hurt in the third quarter. He goes out. Jake Rubley, the third string quarterback, comes in, throws an interception on his first attempt. TCU takes back control of the game. Will Howard, plays unbelievable in Waco, beats Baylor 31-3. And then, just has been taking care of business, handled West Virginia last week. And I've said, unless something happens to Will Howard, I'm not wishing bad on the guy, because I love his story. I think he's matched up with, or he's just thrived under Colin Klein, the new offensive coordinator at K-State. And, but unless something happens to Will Howard, I just don't see how Kansas's defense can slow down Will Howard and Deuce Vaughn. But look, stranger things have happened. Kansas can move the ball. We know that. And they got absolutely stuffed by Texas. Maybe they figured some things out this week and they can turn it into a shootout. But, Jalen Daniels, Devin Neal, they were a little banged up coming out of the Texas game. We'll see how healthy they are to take on K-State, because, it's a K-State team that probably is wincing at a couple of plays against Texas, but came right back the next week, went to Waco, smashed Baylor 31-3, and then went to Morgantown and handled business. So I think the odds are against it, Taylor, but who knows? I know everyone who's connected to Burn Orange is going to be cheering for that Rock Chalk Jayhawk Blue on Saturday night.
Yeah, and including the Texas players. DeMarvion Overshone told us on Monday that after the Kansas game that he was trying to pump up some of the Jayhawk players to get them ready to take care of business against Kansas State, which I think is such a DeMarvion Overshone, honestly, move, and one of the few people I think that could do it, and it may work. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah, there's, that's going to be what happens for Texas future is going to be dependent on that game. But at the end of the day, though, Chip, I feel like, coming off of some of the losses that Texas had this year, whether it was the Texas Tech loss or the Oklahoma State loss, even the TCU loss, I feel like it was a little bit demoralizing for some Texas fans, thinking like, oh, here we go again. This is going to be a bad season. The fact that Texas has turned it around, the defense was as good as we've seen in, I can't remember the last time. Honestly, probably Manny Diaz's first year coaching at Texas as defensive coordinator, when he had a veteran defense from top to bottom. Maybe this probably goes toe to toe. So 2011, we're talking over a decade. This defense has been good, and there were some good years under Todd Orlando too. But that turnaround is something that should not be overlooked. That shows progress. The fact that Texas, after every loss, came back and kind of played with a vengeance, I think that's something that should not be overlooked. You've seen progress in Texas, and sure, 8-4 may not be the record, the standard that some Texas fans have for this program. I wouldn't say that it's the standard that Steve Sarkisian or these players have for this program either. However, I think it would be a mistake to overlook some of the progress you have seen from Texas this season, and that's huge. From 5-7 to 8-4, and potentially a slim chance of playing for a Big 12 title. You'll take that. You've got to take it. You've got to see the progress there, and the culture. I think culture too. That's something. Yeah, that shows up. Yeah,
I was just about to mention that. In the Insider a couple of weeks ago, talking to Dan Neal, he brought that up and said, listen, as a former player, played on 3 conference championship teams at Texas and 2 Super Bowl winning teams with the Denver Broncos. You got to get the culture right in the locker room, where the players are playing for each other and are, willing to put in the work. And we did see that this year. We saw the culture improve. So Steve Sarkisian deserves credit for that. And you'll look at the defense and say, man, the defense always kind of figured it out as the year went on, played really well early against Alabama, but then couldn't get off the field on fourth down against Texas Tech, played unbelievably in the third quarter against Oklahoma State to seemingly allow the Texas offense to put that game away after they led by 17 in the second quarter. It didn't happen. Steve Sarkisian kept throwing it with Quinn Ewers. And I blame Steve Sarkisian for that. I don't blame Quinn Ewers. I don't. Yeah. If Quinn Ewers is having a tough day and he's setting the FBS record for the past 3 seasons for overthrows, quit throwing the football.
Yeah.
Hand the ball to Bijan.
Right?
Right. Hand the ball to Bijan Robinson. Win the game. Finish the game. That game bothers me obviously more than any other this season because they did have 2 fourth quarter drives that started off amazingly with strong runs by Bijan Robinson, and then Sarkisian went to the pass. And so that bothers me. And Quinn Ewers, gets blamed for that and takes a confidence hit. And Quinn Ewers played really well in the second quarter at Kansas State when Texas built that 31-10 lead. And then he obviously struggled today. Even though his numbers, he was 12 of 16 passing, it's 75% passing, but he got sacked 5 times. Mm-hmm. And he, coughed up the football on one of those sacks that turned into a touchdown, and he had the safety to start the game. So, the quarterback position will improve. It should improve with a full off season, lots of film study, Arch Manning arriving to light fires in the competition. Clearly, Quinn Ewers didn't feel any threat of competition from Hudson Card. If Steve Sarkisian was not going to put Hudson Card in the game against Oklahoma State when he's, completing only 19 of 49 passes, 38%. It's awful. I mean, if you were ever going to put in a backup quarterback just for a series to let Quinn Ewers catch his breath, it would have been that Oklahoma State game. When that didn't happen, I'm sure Quinn Ewers felt like, well, I'm never getting replaced. And that's not good. Everybody needs to be fighting for their job all the time. Quinn Ewers will feel that. And again, I don't blame Quinn Ewers for Steve Sarkisian continuing to throw the football when you have Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson like today. Mm-hmm. People are like, get him off the field, get Ewers off the field. He's killing us. This offense can't get into rhythm, run the ball, blah, blah, blah. That's Steve Sarkisian. Exactly. So Sark has to grow because his offense is the one, that kind of held this team back. Remember the 18 possessions with only 6 points in that stretch, coming out of the, K-State game. Remember those 3-point fourth quarters and the 3-point second half and the 0 points? 3 points, against TCU. No touchdowns. I mean, the offense has to get better. And I think the running game's going to be okay, even without Bijan Robinson and without Roshan Johnson, because I think you have, Jonathan Brooks and Keelan Robinson, Jaden Blue. You got recruits coming in. I would love to see Jordan Whittington come back. He did walk today with the seniors. God bless me, had a healthy season. He had a big play today. He also had a big play that resulted, in a fumble, which was a bummer because that was 1st and 20 after those 2 straight false starts. And he catches a 29-yard catch and run and then gets hammered and fumbles the ball. Baylor recovers, but it
uncharacteristic too. That was just, it was a good play. It was a good play by Baylor. Like, it
was. So, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We got plenty of time to kind of look ahead, but we'll see. We'll see if Texas can backdoor their way into the Big 12 championship. And then we'll wait and see what the bowl season brings.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating for sure. And what time is the K-State Kansas game? Is it tomorrow night?
It's Saturday night.
Saturday night.
6:30.
Okay. Yeah,
believe. Let me check that out while we're talking here.
it
What do
is.
you think, Taylor? You asked me. What do you think about the Kansas State game?
I mean, it would be it would be a story in itself, honestly, if Kansas was able to upset K-State. I don't even know off the top of my head when the last time that Kansas did beat K-State in football. So that in itself would be a story in itself. I would say that the fact that this is a road game, and as you had said, if Will Howard stays in the game, is healthy, I've thought all along, all season, leading into the season, actually, that Kansas State was probably the dark horse in the Big 12 title race, especially if they could stay healthy. That was always the biggest thing because they just don't have the depth that some other teams have, and they've managed for the most part to do that. I know Will Howard had some ups and downs, same with Adrian Martinez too, from the injury standpoint. But logic tells me K-State probably is going to win that game. It would just be something, I think, take Texas out of the equation, take Texas, fighting for a Big 12 title spot out of the equation. It would just be one of those like, oh my gosh, Kansas upset K-State this year too, and Kansas finished the season with 7 wins. After they already secured bowl eligibility for the first time since 2008. That in itself would be just one of those like Cinderella stories, which sounds silly because it's a 7 or a 6-win team currently that I'm talking about. If they were to get that win, it would be a 7-win team. Calling that a Cinderella story, I know sounds crazy, but let's be honest, Kansas is known for basketball, not football. So that would be huge. But I think logic shows that it's probably going to be K-State. And, this is a good K-State team too. And talk about the stories though about both Chris Kleiman and Lance Leipold, the head coaches of Kansas and Kansas State. What they've been able to do with both of those programs should not be overlooked. I think that's something that's kind of cool if you are just a college football fan to watch and see that the turnaround and the style of play that they have brought. That's big. I think it would be fun to watch, but I would say I'm not a betting person, but I would say if I had to put money on it, I probably would not bet on the underdog upset in this one. Unfortunately for Texas fans, sorry, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I just logically speaking, I think that this K-State team's a far superior team than probably Kansas, but that's not a knock on Kansas to me. And that game is at 7:00, I believe, on
7:00.
Fox. Yeah.
And how about Lance Leipold? He gets an extension in September. He got an extension through the 2027 season, and this past week he got 2 more years through the 2029 season for leading Kansas to this 6-5 record, first bowl game since the 2008 season under Mark Mangino back in the day. So
I was still in college last time that Kansas played for a bowl game. I'll say that.
Yeah. And Lance Leipold, is a name he's from Wisconsin. I know when Wisconsin made their coaching change, a lot of KU fans were nervous, but Lance Leipold staying right where he is. And we'll see if he can pull off some Sunflower State showdown magic Saturday night at 7:00. We will be watching, and we will also, depending on the outcome of that game, have all kinds of things. Well, we'll have all kinds of things to talk about no matter what, as we, prepare for our flagship podcast, which we do every week. But Taylor, we have to mention it's Black Friday, and we have the most unbelievable offer going on right now to join Horns 24/7. We just want to be one of your Texas sites, but you really should be a member at Horns 24/7, because not only do you get all the latest scoop and intel on your Longhorns, but you get VIP access to all the VIP content on the entire 24/7 Sports Network. All, Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, Michigan, USC. You're getting the premium content to all those sites by becoming an annual member at Horns 24/7, and right now 75% off. You're basically paying $2.24 a month for the best place to come follow the Longhorns.
Yeah, no brainer, no brainer. If you're going to take part of any Black Friday specials, this is definitely the one. As Chip said, $224 per month for 12 months of VIP access to not just Horns 24/7, but the entire 24/7 Sports Network. No promo code required. New members just go to horns247.com. There are plenty of links on the front page. you know, uh, to promote this 75% off special. Click on one of those, sign up, become an annual member. You will get access to all the other team sites and get it at the best price, because this is literally every year. The Black Friday sale is the one that we all kind of count down to, because it is the best sale of the year. So definitely do not miss out. This offer does end Monday at 11 p.m. Central Time. So it's going to go through the weekend into Cyber Monday. Don't wait till last minute. Join today, and you will not be disappointed. Especially you wouldn't be disappointed regardless, but especially $224 per month. Come on.
Yeah, and you give it to yourself for Christmas, and then
Yeah.
tell your wife, your girlfriend, your kids, hey, thanks for giving me Horns 24/7, because it's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, basketball season, are you kidding me? You got a top 5 basketball team with Chris Beard, and I mean it. This team I'm all in on because of the guard play. Tyrese Hunter, Jabari Rice. These guys are gonna give Texas a presence at the guard position in March. And Marcus Carr's playing so much better off the ball now. And Dylan Mitchell, the 5-star freshman, is only going to get better as the season goes on. I mean, this could be a special team. You don't want to miss out on that. All the recruiting news, Arch Manning, the incredible 2023 football class Texas is putting together. So just click on the front page at Horns 24/7 right now and do yourself a favor while you're thinking of it, and just become a member of Horns 24/7 and enjoy it. Just enjoy talking Texas football year round and getting all the scoop on your favorite team and favorite teams. We talk about volleyball and the Texas women's basketball team too. So we cover it all. It's what we do. Taylor, anything else before we sign off here from our recap of Texas's 38-27 victory over Baylor?
The only thing I would say is something that kind of happened behind the scenes after the game. Bijan Robinson had a group of reporters, no surprise, right, around him after the game. And, I know that Texas fans have been hearing for the last 2 years Steve Sarkisian talking about Bijan Robinson being as good of a football player that he is. He's an even better person. I feel like sometimes that does get overlooked. I think sometimes people think it's coach speak, but just a little behind the scenes deal with Bijan. He was asked all these questions about, his future. He took the high road, didn't answer really, just is focused on the rest of the season. But after the interview with him, Chip, he literally, every single person that was interviewing him, he shook their hands or gave them a hug. He gave me like a huge hug when he was walking out. And that just, I feel like sums up who Bijan Robinson is. And I hope Heisman voters are listening to this too, because you want the best player in college football to also be the best person. And it's rare, I think, sometimes that happens. But Bijan Robinson fully he personifies exactly what elite is and what being the next level type of person is, both on and off the field. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. Like, he stayed around to make sure to say, thank everybody, give them hugs, shakes, or handshakes and everything.
Yeah.
So Texas fans, you've had a special one for the last 3 years. We'll say that.
I thought the funniest line that we got on Monday was Jordan Whittington saying that Bijan will now bow up to his teammates, because in the past, Jordan Whittington said, I'd tell him, move out the way. And Bijan would be like, yes, sir. And then this season, Whittington would be like, hey, move out the way. And Bijan would be like, you're going to have to go through me. And he's like he's toughened up.
Yeah.
But I agree. I saw him in the hall after, and I said, "Man, they got you the ball just in time." He's like, "Yeah, and it finished just the way it should." And he said, "Man, I can't thank you enough for all the coverage." And you're sitting there going, "Wow."
Yeah.
So, and we
We
should
never
also
expect it either. Like, that's the thing. We don't expect that from
right,
players
right,
ever.
right,
Like, and that's what makes it I feel like people should hear it because that's never the expectation. You're one of the top players in college football. My expectation is not for you to sit there and, hang out and be all chummy with us or anything like that. It's kind of like just be there for interviews and leave, and nobody would blink an eye. But that just shows how different he is.
right. And also, we should mention um, Jaleel Billingsley, the Alabama transfer tight end, no longer with the Texas football team. That development confirmed, uh, you know, before the game. And so that experiment, Billingsley was suspended for the first 6 games of this season due to an NCAA matter stemming from last season at Alabama. But he had 3 catches on the season, one really big drop against TCU on 2nd and 10 near midfield that could have gone for a big play. But that experiment has come to an end. So we'll keep you updated over there at horns247.com. So if you're not a member, jump on that 75% off offer and come join the party. Until next time, for Taylor Estes, I am Chip Brown. Stay safe, keep the faith, and hope everyone is having a great Thanksgiving weekend. All right, take care.